Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
Gerasim came back to Moscow at a hard time to find work, just before Christmas. For 3 weeks he tried to find a job but couldn't. He stayed with family and friends from his village. Even though he wasn't in great need yet, it made him sad that, as a strong young man, he couldn't find work. Gerasim had lived in Moscow since he was young. He first worked as a bottle washer and later as a house servant. For the last 2 years, he worked for a merchant but had to return to his village for military duty. He wasn't chosen, so he came back to Moscow because life in the village was too boring for him. As time passed, it became harder for Gerasim to walk around without a job. He asked everyone he knew, and even strangers, but still found nothing. He didn't want to bother his family anymore. Some were annoyed with him and others had problems because of him. He didn't know what to do and sometimes went a whole day without eating. One day, Gerasim went to a friend from his village who worked as a coachman for a rich man named Sheriff. His friend was trusted by Sheriff because he reported on all the other servants. The friend welcomed Gerasim, gave him tea and food, and asked how he was. Gerasim said, "I'm doing very badly. I've been without a job for weeks. Did you ask your old boss to take you back?" The friend asked. "I did, but the job was already taken," Gerasim replied. The friend bragged about how well he served his boss and said, "If I ever leave, my boss would gladly take me back." Gerasim sat feeling sad. He knew his friend was bragging and decided to praise him. "I know it," Gerasim said, "but it's hard to find workers like you, Yegor Danilik. Your boss wouldn't have kept you for 12 years if you weren't good." Yegor smiled, happy with the compliment. "That's right," Yegor said. "If you worked like I do, you wouldn't be without a job for so long." Gerasim didn't say anything. Yegor was called by his boss. "Wait here," he told Gerasim. "I'll be right back." "Okay," Gerasim replied. Yegor came back and told Gerasim he needed to get the horses ready in half an hour to take his boss to town. As he smoked his pipe, Yegor walked around the room and then stopped in front of Gerasim. "Listen," Yegor said, "if you want, I can ask my boss to hire you as a servant here. Does he need help?" Gerasim asked. "We have a worker, but he's old and can't do the job well anymore. Luckily, the area is quiet, so the police don't check if things are kept clean. Oh, please ask for me, Yegor Danilik. I can't stand being without work anymore." "Okay, I'll ask for you. Come back tomorrow. Here, take this 10 kopek coin. It might help. Thank you, Yegor Danilik. I'll pray for you. Please ask for me. I will try." Gerasim left, and Yegor got the horses ready. He put on his coat and drove his boss, Mr. Sheriff, into town. After they returned home, Yegor saw that his boss was in a good mood and said, "Yegor Fyodorich, I need to ask you a favor." "What is it?" asked Mr. Sheriff. "There's a young man from my village here. He's a good worker but has no job." "Well," asked Mr. Sheriff, "can you hire him?" Yegor asked. "What do I need him for?" Mr. Sheriff replied. "He can help with all the work around the place," Yegor suggested. "What about Polikarpik?" Mr. Sheriff asked. "He's too old now. It's time to let him go." Yeager said. That's not fair. He's worked for me for many years. I can't just dismiss him without reason. He's been paid for his work, and he must have saved some money for his old age, Yeager argued. Saved money? How could he? He has a wife to support, and she also needs food and drink, said Mr. Sheriff. His wife earns money too, doing cleaning jobs. She can't make much. Just enough for simple things, Sheriff replied. Why should you worry about them? Polycarpic isn't doing a good job anymore. He's slow and never clears the snow on time. When he's on night duty, he sneaks away because it's too cold. One day, the police will complain, and you'll have problems, Yeager warned. Still, it feels wrong. He's been with me for 15 years. It wouldn't be right to treat him badly in his old age, Sheriff said. It's not wrong. He can go to the almshouse. It'll be better for him to rest in his old age. Sheriff thought for a moment. Fine. Bring your friend, and I'll see what I can do, Mr. Sheriff finally said. Thank you, sir. He's a good boy and has been out of work for a long time. He lost his last job because he had to report for military duty. Otherwise, his old boss wouldn't have let him go. The next evening, Gerasim came back and asked, Did you find any work for me? I think so, Yeager replied. Let's have some tea first. Then we'll go to my master. Gerasim was too eager to care about tea, but he politely drank 2 glasses. Then they went to see Mr. Sheriff. Sheriff asked Gerasim where he had worked before and what jobs he could do. After that, he said Gerasim could start as the new helper and should come back the next day to begin. Gerasim was so happy that he could barely walk. He went to Yeager's room and Yeager told him, Do your work well so I don't have to be ashamed of you. Masters are quick to complain if you make a mistake. Don't worry, Yeager Danilek, Gerasim said. All right then, Yeager replied. As Gerasim was leaving, he passed by Polycarpic's room and heard voices inside. A woman was speaking. What are we going to do now? I don't know, Polycarpic answered. We might have to start begging. There's nothing else we can do, the woman said. We work all our lives. But when we get old, we're just thrown away. The master doesn't care about us. All he thinks about is himself, Polycarpic added. All masters are the same. They don't see how hard we work for them, using our best years, the woman said. We still have enough strength to work. But they push us out. The master isn't the problem. It's the coachman, Yeager Danilek. He's helping his friend, Polycarpic said. Yes, Yeager is sneaky, but I'll get back at him. I'll tell the master how Yeager steals the hay and lies about us all. The woman replied angrily. Don't do it, old woman. Don't make trouble, said Polycarpic. Why not? Everything I said is true. I will tell the master so he can see it himself. Yeager has ruined us, she cried. Gerasim heard everything, and it made him feel very sad. He realized how hard things were for the old couple. After standing there, thinking for a while, he went back to Yeager's room. Did you forget something? Yeager asked. No, Yeager Danilek, Gerasim said nervously. I just want to thank you for all your help, but I can't take the job. What are you saying? I don't want the job. I'll find another one. Yeager got angry. You fool. You begged me for this job, and now you refuse? You've made me look bad." Gerasim stayed silent, feeling ashamed. Jaeger turned away angrily and said nothing more. Gerasim quietly took his hat and left. He walked out of the yard and down the street, feeling light and happy.